I have some absolutely incredible video to play for you from Fox News, where Fox News host Neil Cavuto brings on Oklahoma Senator James Lankford. And I should emphasize Oklahoma because I've been saying Alabama recently. Apologies for that. Thank you to a viewer for correcting me. And the subject matter of this discussion between the Fox host and this Republican senator is so devastating for Donald Trump. If we could just prompt more of the very conversations you're about to see here in right-wing outlets, it could be a game changer. And my request to all of you is go out in the world when you're having political discussions and make sure that what is discussed here is reiterated. And something I've been bringing up a lot, which is somehow Republicans are benefiting heavily politically on the issue of the southern border and the issues relating to our southern border. And that should not be the case, given lots of reasons. We'll talk more about that after. But the big, most recent, prominent one is that the person on the screen there, James Lankford, worked with Democrats to craft a bipartisan deal that the Border Patrol Union supports enthusiastically, that would seek to address a lot of these very issues. And it was MAGA Republicans at the direction of Donald Trump who killed it because they want to prevent Biden from getting a win. And so this should not be an issue that Republicans are benefiting politically on, but it is one. And so if we want to change that, which we should, and align the perception more with reality, then lots of conversations have to happen. We hear how often Trump talks about this issue and lies. We have to talk just as often and tell the truth. And here's a really interesting moment, like I said, from Fox News, where Trump is blamed. Pretty humiliating.
I know you're not trying to zing your colleagues, but it's your colleagues in your party, sir, who torpedoed this, who didn't get the facts right on what you just outlined was in that measure. They killed it. Ironically, not Democrats.
Right. It was, and it was painful to be able to watch it. It got stirred up in all the presidential politics, and several of my colleagues started looking for ways after President Trump said, don't fix anything during the presidential election. It's the single biggest issue during the election. Don't resolve this. We'll resolve it next year. Quite a few of my colleagues backed up, looked for a reason to be able to shoot against it, and then walked away. I get that. That's a decision everybody makes in it. My issue is if we're pursuing everything, we very often end up with nothing. If we're pursuing someone coming later to fix it, later seems to never come. When we have a moment to fix things, we should fix as many things as we can then come back later and fix the rest.
That's on Donald Trump, Senator.
That, again, he's got an office that he's running for. He's got a campaign that he's running. I'm already in office. I've got a responsibility to be able to carry on this.
So there it is. On the Fox News airwaves, Trump being blamed for the issue Fox News fearmongers the most about. And obviously not in full, probably, but they're saying the only prominent massive action we've seen proposed and that had a serious shot of being signed into law in the last decades relating to the border came forward, and MAGA Republicans were the ones who obstructed the process of actually getting it passed. It would have passed if Mike Johnson had brought it to a vote, but he refused to, and MAGA Republicans across the House and Senate spoke out against it at the direction of Trump. And so I do want to say it's always important to note that, number one, this wasn't the first effort by Biden to take some legislative action relating to the subject of immigration. He came into office, immediately introduced immigration reform. Since then, he's continued to propose more and more investments at the border specifically and our immigration system in his budgets. And then this is just the most recent and relevant example, which is why we're going to focus in on it. And I do think for the American people to really hear clearly about something, it needs to be very concise what we're talking about here. And that's why, to all of you, you're hearing me come back to this very often, because it's important that people understand we just had solutions, not the end all be all, but a set of solutions to start making progress in the right direction. And it was shot down because Trump wants problems to be as bad as possible so we can run on them against Joe Biden. The other thing that I want to emphasize before going any further is that there being issues at the southern border, which there are, doesn't justify the rhetoric we're hearing from a lot of people within MAGA. That needs to be said as well. We have to simultaneously promote solutions and thus accept the fact that there's very real problems while rejecting the horrible rhetoric we've heard, the horrible dehumanization, and the vile and dangerous fear mongering. So that's important as well. And we have to be willing to zoom out and take a broader look at, yes, how we make the border as secure as possible, as logistically sound as possible, as humane as possible. And that seems to be something MAGA throws by the wayside. And also better investing and better structuring, making more efficient our entire immigration system needs to be a priority, a part of the conversation as well. I'm going to go through after I play this next clip and clarify a few points on what was actually in this deal, because a lot of MAGA Republicans, in trying to justify their opposition to it, have been lying about it. So we'll go through a list that we've gone through in the past. But first, here's a really interesting confrontation where Republican Representative Nicole Maliotakis appeared on CNN and was called out over this very issue, this border deal relating to this discussion, live on air. And this is what we need to see every single time. Every time the border comes up, every time MAGA Republicans try to pretend like they're serious about making things better. No. You want things to be as bad as possible so that you can politically do better.
That's wrong. So even getting an agreement to reverse
I'm sorry to interrupt
some of that,
you. I just want to push the point there, though. But it is all happening. But at this moment in time, the time is of the essence on the funding for these aid bills.
And really quickly, please make sure you are subscribed to this channel just by clicking that subscribe button. Here's more.
And this stuff has not gotten worked out in months.
Yeah, but that is why I'm making the case that, Senator Schumer and the president should be giving a little. They see what's happening to our country. Do they not see the drug cartels profiting billions of dollars by human trafficking and drug trafficking? Do they not see 100,000 Americans dying from fentanyl that's coming over our border? Why will they not work with us?
Well, they did try to pass
No, they did not, actually.
Well, because the former president told them to kill it. So I'm just saying it was negotiated by James Lankford. Well, first of all, and Kirsten Sinema and Chris Murphy. It was a bipartisan piece of legislation.
And by the way, that was another example of this. We can't do foreign aid or really anything until we do something about the border. And that's what we're hearing now from many Republicans. But the same people saying that are the ones who shot down doing something on the border. Again, legislation endorsed by the Border Patrol Union. We're about to go through some examples because their response would be, yeah, but not that, because that was bad. We'll see. But before we get to that, I'm going to keep repeating that we, as those advocating for the pro-democracy party, because there's only one right now, unfortunately, we have to be so dang repetitive in our messaging about this. And the reason is because, and this is a huge bummer about politics, but perception's everything. And that's why Republicans win so often on issues that they actually lose on the facts on, if that makes sense. And it's because they're really disciplined in their branding and their messaging, and they're just constantly hitting you over the head with these talking points. So then some people, when I just talk to people out in the world, buy into some ideas like Republicans are good for the economy that are completely contradicted by the facts in the last 100 years of economic performance under Democrats or Republicans. But the messaging has prevailed on that, as so often happens, way more powerfully than the facts. And so you can have all the facts on your side and feel so great about the truth that you have, but that does nothing if you can't get that message to people. And so that's why I'm circling back to this so often, because if the border is going to be the issue that Trump wants to premise his entire campaign on, that and retribution or something, and him being a civilly liable rapist, okay, maybe he's not going to include that in his slogan. But if the border is going to play such a huge role, and not only do we want Trump to lose because he's a threat to democracy, but he's also worse on that issue, then we need to be willing to talk about it just as much as these MAGA Republicans are willing to lie about it. And with that being said, the most prominent dishonest talking point that people use in defending their decision to obstruct this legislation is that it allowed in thousands of people with no process, and it was just horrible. I don't even know how they're able to live with themselves lying so much like that. The figure they'll refer to, 5,000 people will be allowed in. No. 5,000 people in terms of border encounters is the threshold that triggers this new emergency authority. If this got passed, Biden would be the first president to have this emergency authority that will restrict the normal asylum process because of the amount of encounters that we're experiencing. And so it would give more emergency authorities to the president, and that's the threshold that triggers it under this law. So just a lie coming from them on that, and they're just plucking out a number from a bit of this to build that talking point off of. It raises the legal standard for initial screening for asylum, expedites asylum process from years trying to get to 6 months, which means hiring more asylum officers, more immigration judges, so important. $6.8 billion to Customs and Border Protection, $7.8 billion for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, $3.99 billion for Citizenship and Immigration Services. The Fend Off Fentanyl Act was in this legislation that you heard the Congresswoman refer to fentanyl, but she's in the party that's blocking this attempt to actually do something about it. And the Fend Off Fentanyl Act was actually something that initially tried to get implemented into the Defense Authorization Act, but Mike Johnson and House Republicans blocked it from getting into that. And then again, they blocked it in this legislation. And there's much more, but sort of those give you a sense of just how on paper this addresses a lot of things that Republicans have been saying they care about. Not so much anymore, because politics and power has become for them way more important than people and making those people's lives better and solving problems and bringing forward solutions. And that's a pretty unfortunate reality. And another clip here, this is Democratic Representative Rosa DeLauro, and she made this point during a recent hearing.
Sentence about border security. I sat in the White House, not in a classified meeting, where Republican colleagues said that we won't have Ukraine without bipartisan border security. And then you know what? We accomplished bipartisan border security. It wasn't, and it was, oh, you can shake your head all you want, but Democrats and Republicans voted for border security. And you know what? It was Donald Trump who said, don't give Biden a win. You think about that. Put that aside. This moment is now. The United States Senate, you can have all the views you want about the United States Senate, but hold them for this debate. It is now. It is about the United States House of Representatives. We have the opportunity to do what we do here, and that is to govern.
And that's exactly it. And specifically on Ukraine, they keep saying they won't give any aid to Ukraine until we do something about the border, but then they won't let us do anything about the border. It is stunning. As you can tell, I sort of keep myself lively for the sake of it being something you want to watch. But deep down, this is also making me lose faith in humanity a little bit, seeing just how dishonest and just how horrible lots of people are willing to be. But that's okay, because we can win over those people politically and launch ourselves into a better future. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.